In the interest of everyone's time, get started. Welcome to the Government Planning Committee meeting of June 2nd. I'd like to acknowledge that we're meeting on the traditional land of the Saugeen and Ojibwe Nation, which is represented by the communities of Saugeen First Nation and the Chippewas and Quincy First Nation. We also think the Métis Nation of Ontario, whose history and people are well represented in diverse and various boundaries. For attendance tonight, we have regrets from Trustee Peters and Trustee Morgan, and we're joined online by Trustee McCollum. So we're to the approval of the agenda. Is there any new business anyone wants to add to our agenda? Trustee Craig? I see none. Could I have a mover that the agenda for the Governance Standing Committee meeting for June 2nd, 2026 be approved? Trustee Hughes. All in favor? Yes. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest on any of our items on the agenda this evening? None. We have no delegations this evening. So our first staff report is the field trip. I'd like to invite Superintendent of Education Elliott to speak to the report and recommendations. And we'll put the motion on the floor that the Blue Water District School Board consider for approval that John Baker Senior School students participate in the JBSS Greece and Italy Cultural Field Trip, February 18th to 27th, 2028. Contingent that it aligns with all travel advisories at the time of the trip. Could I have a mover, Trustee Hopkinson, and welcome.
Thank you, Chair Thompson. Thank you, Chair Thompson. It's my pleasure to introduce the JBSS field trip. I'm actually going to pass it over to Abby Kingston, who will speak on behalf of JBSS students regarding the trip.
Good evening. So I'm going to be speaking on the Italy and Greece cultural field trip tonight, and I was informed that it's Italy Heritage Month apparently. So I guess it's good timing. So we're going to talk about the experience of a lifetime and learning through travel today. So first I want to start with why students travel. So it helps students grow, become more independent, and embrace new challenges. Student outcomes. So how are students impacted by this travel experience? How do they grow, not just academically, but also as human beings? After the tours and they come home, the teachers always like to follow up and ask students about their experience. So I have some of the numbers here as well tonight. So 98% said their tour broadened the students' world. 95% said it encouraged the students to embrace new challenges. 97% said it helped them to grow as people. And 2/3 said it helped their students develop the ability to have an impact on the world. So they will be going with EF Travel. So this is why they're traveling with that company. So the global presence in almost any time zone, in almost any country or region, EF is there. They have dedicated EF team members to locations around the world ready to help the students and customers in any situation on any day. The global presence prioritizes safety as well as global negotiating powers delivers affordability. So safety is their #1 priority. EF has the largest safety and security team in the industry with 24/7, 365 coverage. The only company in industry with dedicated staff for safety and security. Local offices in virtually every travel destination offered globally. EF staff personally visit every hotel, restaurant, attraction, and bus company utilized. The EF Peace of Mind program ensures that even if plans change unexpectedly, all our groups can still continue with confidence. So everything will be included. It's a full-time tour director who's with them every step of the way. Transportation, including round-trip flights, daily breakfast and dinner featuring regional cuisine, expert-led sightseeing tours in iconic destinations, tickets to bucket list experiences and attractions, as well as overnight stays in hotels and private bathrooms. The trip coverage and flexibility. So they have global travel protection and cancel for any reasons programs with coverage, program cancellation, program interruption, illness and accident, baggage and property, flight delay, and emergency evacuation. Ways to pay for the tour. They can pay in full out of enrollment, a manual payment plan, or pay with something called pay. And they also have numbers available if the students have any questions. The day-by-day itinerary. Day 1, they fly overnight to Greece. Day 2, they will be in Athens where they'll meet their tour director. And day 3, they're in Athens at Olympia specifically. So they'll get to oversee the Olympia site of the very first Olympic Games that day. Day 4, they travel to Delphi and they see it with a local guide to explore the sacred hills where the ancient leaders thought oracle wisdom. Day 5, they go from Delphi to Athens again. They get to see the Temple of Athena. And day 6, they go Athens to Florence. So this is when they travel to Italy. In Florence, on day 7, they get to explore the Renaissance city. On day 8, they go from Florence to Rome. And on day 9 is when they really get to enjoy Rome. And then I believe they've also provided you with a copy of the itinerary, the little hour by hour breakdown. So the price for the trip is $4,704. That includes the suppers, the breakfast, the hotels, transportation, and admission to venues and events. This includes $30,000 worth of fundraising for 30 students. At JDSS, we pride ourselves in offering students affordable and accessible opportunities to travel and learn. We want to ensure that fundraising opportunities are available to students. This would include selling food, a spaghetti dinner, gift baskets, a movie night, and other fundraising activities. Experiential learning supports students' mind to new experiences, perspectives, and pathways which promote student growth.
Well done. I feel like you've been sitting here watching field trips be presented all year and answered any possible question that you could think to ask. Very well done, Abby. Do trustees have any questions or comments? Trustees?
Thank you. I do want to say that was an absolutely fantastic and thorough presentation. And I have a comment that just this partially comes from being a parent and partially on the board. It's just the inflation in the world is exceptionally noticeable with each trip that we approve. Because we crossed a left digit threshold that I don't think we've crossed before in the price of this trip. And I know held my breath a little bit when I read that. And I know it reflects the actual cost. That's why this isn't really a question, or there's a little bit of a concern, I think, in it. It's just, but I hear there is lots of fundraising available. I hope there is good uptake for the trip because of that.
Through the chair, if I could comment, one of the reasons why this trip is coming to you now in June rather than in September is that the teachers in charge really want to have the opportunity to get the kids signed up so that they have those extra months for fundraising, recognizing that the trip actually doesn't go until February 2028, knowing that exactly what you said, it is not, these numbers do go up.
Any other questions or comments? Trustee Craig?
It sounds like a fabulous trip to two countries that I deeply love. Been there several times. My only comment would be that I don't think it was necessary or desirable to get such a commercial about the tour company. Sure, there are many tour companies that are equally competent, and certainly it's encouraging to hear how well organized they are.
Any other questions or comments? Trustee Atkinson.
Yes, always, you're very thorough with your presentation, and thank you for that. I'm just a comment, if there's one of these four chaperones that put a good word in with Mr. Lassard for me, and But all kids, I wish you them all, like it's a chance of a lifetime. And I cannot honestly remember a trip before us to Greece and Italy. I could be wrong, but that's usually different. But anyway, enjoy. All the best to the students in their fundraising. And as always, if there's anything that I can do, please let me know.
Trustee Johnston.
It is trustee Atkinson, you know. Let's step up and wait and the ultimate sound. Oh.
Anybody else? I don't think there's any other questions. It was moved by trustee Atkinson that Blue Water District School Board consider for approval that John Beacom Baker Senior School students participate in the JDSS Greece and Italy Cultural Field Trip, February 18th to 27th, 2028, contingent that it aligns with all travel advisories at the time of the trip. All in favor? And that's clear. And next is our math action plan update. And I would like to invite Superintendent Buffet to speak to this report.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to call up Amy Doherty, our math administrator coach, and she has a few people that she's going to call up and introduce our team that have been helping us with our team action in mathematics and coaching plan that is in its third year. We've seen some tremendous results. Amy and the staff will be sharing some of those with you. We've seen increases in our grade 3 results, and you've seen and will be highlighted in our staff report, our student achievement report next. And while we're plateaued in grade 6 math, we're hoping to see some increases in the future. We know we put some really strong pieces in place recently with our mathematics framework. And we have some tremendous resources available for staff, and through the coaching model that will continue next year through the core ed funding. We look forward to seeing continued gains in these areas. So I'm called on to you right now.
Good evening, everyone. As Keith said, my name is Amy Doherty. I'm the mathematics coach administrator here with Blue Water. And with me, I have two amazing mathematics coaches, Rachel Flute and Meredith Jenkins, and they're going to be jumping into the presentation today at different points just to add to the on the ground level conversation of the work we're doing. Before we get too far along in this conversation, I just want to remind you that we did talk about the Mathematics Achievement Action Plan back in October. So I'd like you to take a moment just to remind yourself of the 3 priority actions laid out from the Ministry of Education's Taking Action in Mathematics Strategy, as well as our board goal, which are the 4 items that really drive the Mathematics Achievement Action Plan and the work we do in mathematics from kindergarten through grade 12. In October, I outlined several ways that we would monitor the impact of our actions in mathematics. Tonight, Rachel and Meredith will speak to the work that they're doing in ministry designated priority schools, and I will add to the conversation from a district-wide lens. When we consider the first priority action, we are talking about the alignment of research-based instructional and assessment practices with curricular-aligned resources. From a district perspective, the work we have done during our professional activity days has specifically aligned with the Ministry of Education's guiding document, High Impact Instructional Practices in Mathematics. Training around the mathematics framework, which I spoke to you about a few weeks ago, which outlines the key components of an effective mathematics instructional block, allowed teachers to reflect on their current practices and provided them opportunities to work within their curriculum and with grade-alike colleagues to plan for future instruction. Additional training with ambassadors from Knowledge Hub was also provided to our administrators, our grade 9 streamed math teachers, and within several elementary schools. Monthly principal meetings allowed administrators to reflect upon mathematics instruction within our schools. Additional learning around key instructional areas in mathematics and time to plan for supporting mathematics instruction within schools remained a focus during our system administrator meetings. Curriculum lead teachers supported new teachers with deepening both their content learning for teaching mathematics and with considering instructional and assessment practices that support building an inclusive community of learners in math. The grade 7 and 8 literacy and numeracy coaches worked with our elementary schools, with the intermediate teachers there, particularly focusing on supporting teachers with building procedural fluency and developing problem-solving skills with our grade 7 and 8 students. Workshops on coding and on instructional and assessment practices in the de-streamed math classroom in grade 9 were provided to our grade 9 mathematics teachers. Now, specifically within our priority schools, which are ministry designated, math facilitators both supported within the classroom through co-planning, co-teaching, modeling, research-based instructional practices to support student learning, and through small group student intervention. Rachel and Meredith will speak to you more about this shortly. At the heart of both the mathematics action plan and within any inclusive mathematics community of learners is knowing the mathematics learner. Assessment through conversations, observations, and products guides our instructional next steps. You've seen this slide before. In October, I talked to the ways that we would be monitoring our work. So let's talk more about the assessment and monitoring that we've done within mathematics. Classroom teachers utilize their professional judgment around assessment throughout the school year in priority schools to support reporting on key performance indicators within the Math Achievement Action Plan. Primary junior math coaches complete additional fluency screening and concept assessments 3 times per year. These assessments are then used to plan with classroom teachers to close gaps. Administrators in all Blue Water schools complete online check-in questions 3 times per year with students in grades 3 and 6, and twice per semester in grade 9 de-streamed math. Check-in questions are modeled after E3O style thinking and application questions, as these styles of questions tend to be the most challenging for our students. This data is shared back to school administrators promptly so that classroom teachers are able to consider what the next instructional move will be to move most students or all students forward. Here's an example of a grade 6 check-in question from our mid-year assessment. Although the question changes from each assessment cycle, the specific expectation that the question addresses and the style of question remains the same over time. This allows us to monitor for improvement. For this particular expectation, it was promising to see an increase of 24% more students being successful on the question, also noting that this assessment was given at the mid-year point in grade 6, but we know that the curriculum is to be met by the end of the school year. We are currently collecting the last set of check-in results for our end-of-year assessment. Now, I invite Rachel Shute first and then Meredith Jenkins to speak about the specific work that they are doing in schools.
Hello, everybody. My name is Rachel. I'm just going to share a little bit about what we've been doing over the last few years, and specifically the last year with Amy. So our coaching role includes 3 key data collections, as Amy mentioned, throughout the year in grades 3 and 6, with a focus on foundational fact fluency and concept-based assessments. Those include grade level, multi-step, multi-operational problem solving. We then look at a range of student thinking to better understand the underlying gaps that impact access to the grade level learning in our rooms. And that information is what helps guide both our instruction and our support. At the core of this work has been supporting strong tier 1 instruction in classrooms, and the support that Amy said is both teacher and student facing. So when student facing, we're in classrooms alongside the teacher, modeling instructional practices, co-teaching, and bringing new strategies directly into the lessons. This includes supporting small group instruction, strengthening math routines, modeling meaningful math conversations, and formative assessment practices that help teachers respond to student thinking in real time. So when we're teacher facing, we look at student data, but we also hear from teachers about their priorities for professional learning. From there, we set shared goals that connect classroom data, teacher learning needs, and board priorities. And we build a plan and we work through that on a pretty regular basis, usually once a week we're in the classrooms. We also support teachers with board resources like MathUp and Knowledge Hub and how to use those effectively. So for example, using Knowledge Hub not just as a digital activity, but as a tool for diagnostic intervention and support. Where possible, depending on teacher interest, school priorities, and funding, we've extended this work beyond the individual classrooms and aligned divisions and in some places, whole schools. So this goal has been consistency in instructional approaches and common math language. So students are experiencing fewer barriers as they move through the grades. Mid-year, we review data with teachers and we adjust our focus based on what we're seeing. So the work stays grounded and responsive to student need. Lastly, this cycle of planning, modeling, co-teaching, assessing, and then adjusting the needs as the year goes on makes professional learning continuous and practical. It also builds teacher capacity in a way that's very transferable and sustainable across many classrooms. So, yeah. It's been a wonderful experience and I'm happy to be here to share.
Meredith is going to talk to us a little bit about fluency routines and assessment.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Thank you so much for having me here at this board meeting. This year, all 3 math coaches really came together and our main goal was to strengthen fluency in mathematics across our schools. As a team, we centered our work around 3 components of fluency: accuracy, flexibility, and efficiency. We recognize that students cannot fully progress in their cognitive development of mathematics without explicit instructions about strategies to help them think flexibly when they're problem solving. Together, we established common goals and we used consistent data collection through the fact fluency continuum to monitor student growth and to guide our instruction. This allowed us to better identify student needs and provide targeted support in classrooms. The impact of this work has just been really encouraging. In both grade 3 and grade 6 priority classrooms, we saw consistent gains in student confidence and mathematical fluency. Our data demonstrated achievement ranging from 20 to 50% from September to January, which was really great. One of the most powerful aspects of our work was to focus on meaningful math conversations. By creating opportunities for students to explain their thinking, share strategies, and engage in collaborative problem solving, students became more confident at articulating their understanding and identifying what they needed to do to improve their learning. The success of this is the dedication and collaboration and commitment of our educators and school teams. We are proud of the growth that our students have demonstrated and are encouraged by the positive impact intentional fluency instruction continues to have in mathematics at our schools. Thank you.
Rachel and Meredith. The last slide here, we're going to come to after the summary. So thinking about the three priority actions, thinking about the work that's being done in all schools and then specifically in those ministry targeted priority schools. These are the ways that we are impacting work at the student desk and supporting teachers and moving all students forward in mathematics.
Thank you so much. I just want to acknowledge all the guests that we have here tonight. Thank you so much for joining us to participate in our meeting. Do trustees have questions or comments?
I just mentioned Chair, he made a really good point. I did want to point out, it doesn't take a lot of art, trustee, when we talk to our staff and we ask that, like, we've been asked to present a report. They are very willing to come and present, and they're very proud of the work that we're doing. So, we didn't have to twist any arms.
No, thank you so much. Trustee Craig.
Well, very impressive, all in all, but strikes me as being rather intellectual and conceptual. So I'd like you to speak to the issue of motivation, how to get kids to be interested in, excited about, and willing to put up with the drudgery of mathematics.
No, I think we spoke about this before and I'm like, Rachel and Meredith jump in, but what we've really been focusing on when we're building fluency, it not only is it important that the student is accurate, they have multiple ways of solving problems, but the practice that we're doing has to be enjoyable for them because not all kids can just memorize facts, right? But we know that having those facts is crucial and lightening that cognitive load so that they can solve more complex problems. So within our schools, we've really been focusing when we're looking at fluency, we're using a variety of models that are engaging, we're using those tools, those manipulatives that you've seen on the screen, but we're also engaging in purposeful gameplay that practices skills that have been taught as a way to ensure that all students are engaged in the learning. And I don't know if you want to comment on the ground. Yeah.
So it has been, thank you so much for your comments, by the way, but it has been so enjoyable to be a facilitator this year. Because we've had common goals, but also when we teach a strategy, it's helped us build that rapport in schools that we don't know those students through those games, because those students actually feel seen by us. And we're meeting those students at their level. So once we're playing a game with them, we're having those math conversations and it's doesn't feel stress because it's through gameplay, right? And we're having those conversations or redirecting a misconception that they might have based on what an actual real life situation. Also, we've been doing a lot of interdisciplinary planning. So I've been working with the conservation team and we've been bringing in real life math into rooms. So, and some of my schools up the peninsula, we've been having actual pelts and measuring them and actually applying them to math. So that has been really engaging and fulfilling for those students and making them love math.
Be short, so I can talk really fast. I did want to say though too, that aside from like doing this work in the classrooms and having the opportunity to have multiple adults in the room is a really wonderful opportunity because I think there's a lot of teachers that have kind of the passion for math. That fire has been lit again through these games and they see how we can make math fun again and it changes the whole tone in the classroom. And as long as these games have intentionality behind them, it's been really powerful to see. And really probably the thing that's been most well liked or most easily picked up, or yeah, it's well received from a large percentage of the teachers we've been working with. So yeah, I think everybody's really enjoying it and showing adults something new. It's a really exciting part of this job too.
I think you know how to get the presenters riled up. I see trustee Newton.
Thank you so much for the presentation and for all the work that you all do. I just wanted to comment on one of the maybe not always measured indicators of success, because we're always looking at those test scores, but and look at not only the number of schools having family math nights, but the attendance and engagement at them is huge. And I've had the pleasure of being at some, and I don't think I've ever been in a more raucous room, and it's all about fun. And everyone's having fun, the kids are teaching their parents things, parents are teaching their kids things, and it is so enjoyable and so exciting, and I know none of that existed when we were in school, not because the games didn't exist, but the idea of having fun with math was not commonly shared, and so even if some of the indicators maybe aren't showing what we want them to, I can tell you that there are other indicators showing fantastic things, so thank you.
I just want to jump on trustee Lutz's comment. I was thinking as I listened to you all the chat about our engagement with students and teachers, but I was missing hearing the conversation about involving the other part of our team, parents and guardians. So I just wondered if you could speak to that a little bit.
Speak to, like, can tie on to what trustee Lutz has said, that many of our administrators are reaching out, thinking, are asking about what does a family math night look like? Are there supports that we could provide to them? And there are, that they can be doing on those nights. I do think that's an area that we always need to be reflective upon, like being a parent myself, a Blue Water parent. It's an area where I think we can always do more, but I do think parents, often a mindset that I'm not good at math is maybe is reflective of something that parent is feeling at home and has felt when they were a child. So making that shift and making that connection to know math is something that every student can be good at, and there are just different ways that we can approach it is really important. I think it's you're right to say that there are probably even more things we can be doing to make sure that our parents are partner and guardians are partners in that math learning.
I ask in part because when we had our literacy conversation, I was asking a personal question about my granddaughter starting school and was directed towards some resources through the ministry that are current and reflect the way that we're approaching literacy in teaching now. And I think there are many parents that would be interested in knowing those same resources for their
Do
students.
have, sorry, I just thought of that too. We do for our early years, so our JK and SB students, as they enter kindergarten, we do have an early mathematics brochure for parents that was developed in-house that has some tasks that they can be doing at home for that entry into mathematics conversations that the parents can be doing, and also ministry and other resources that they can link to. But even extending that further into the older grades would be a nice next step, I think.
Awesome, thank you. Are there any other questions or comments? And Sandy, again, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Next is our student achievement plan, and I'd like to invite Superintendent Elliott to speak to this.
Thank you, Chair. Steve, nice to see you again. Now, I'm glad the next presentation is Indigenous education, and in Indigenous education, there's the board action plan, or we often have here pictures of that. And I'm really glad we didn't label that on the agenda, because then we would have gone from the map, the SAP, to that. And I so the SAP, student achievement, I know it's a dad joke, right? I was at school yesterday and the kids were showing me the dad jokes, they were dad joke book, they were very proud of it. I was able to share a few of them. So our student achievement plan, just really quickly, an overview. This outlines the actions that we take in supporting student success and strengthening transparency and accountability. You have a copy of it in your, oh good, you're looking at it. We put a paper copy in your package tonight so that you can have a look at that. The SNAP is published every year prior to April 30th. It's put onto the board site. This is pulling data, though, that we have reported to you in various ways, shapes, and forms over the course of the whole year. So this includes our AQAO results, this includes some attendance results. There are some questions on there, though, that are going to be referenced that you might not have seen or might have been maybe part of maybe a CAC meeting or something like that. So it is nice to have it all in one area. These are 16 indicators that are chosen by the ministry that are used to represent how our school board is doing. So they're broken into 3 areas, and these 3 areas actually connect quite well with the learning services departments. So the first one is core academic skills. That's me. Future success, Cheryl, and engagement and well-being, Lauren. So we're going to talk to each of those 3 areas, and we'll leave it at that. You can then ask some questions if you wish following that. So core academics. This area includes our EQAO scores, so grade 3 and 6, reading and writing, our OSSLT results, and our grade 3, 6, and 9 math results. You can see on the charts that we have shown improvement. The first 2 lines that you see are the board results over the last 2 years. The second 2 lines in each chart represent the ministry results over the last few years. So again, this is trailing data. This is from 2024, 2025. So this goes back, this is 2023, 2024, and 2024, 2025. So the SAP is always trailing data that we're looking at. We did report this in the fall, that we saw improvements, especially in grade 3 math. And we saw improvements in all areas of grade 3, and in grade 3 and 6, reading, writing, and math, except in grade 6 math, where we saw it pretty much stay the same. OSSLT saw a slight dip, as well as grade 9 math saw a slight dip. Those are the areas in core academics that were highlighted within the student achievement plan. And in terms of actions for improvement, you'll see on the back side of the back, or the SAP, has it has the non-graphical graph word version, an accommodated version, or a version that can be seen for someone who might be visually impaired. So that's easily accessible. So that's on the back side, and you'll see the percentages there rather than the graphs. And at the bottom are indications for actions taken in each of these 3 areas for how we're going to achieve improvement over the course of the next year. So these were our actions that we were taking this year to then recognize achievement moving forward. So I'm just going to highlight a few things as part of mine, and that is our board-wide inquiry approach. We've been working with Lucia James as part of the Thinking Consortium. I think I brought that up before in the past. And our inquiry approach is really around making sure that we are capturing and ensuring that students who are not being successful are then being identified, and we're making sure that we're providing those tier 2 supports. But then we refine that question this year to ensure that we're providing high quality tier 1 supports for all students to make sure that they're being successful. Another area for us in terms of work in my department is improved efforts and focus on strengthening foundational reading and writing and skills through systemic and explicit instruction. We also had professional learning for administrators and teachers, and the use of high impact instructional strategies. That's especially been apparent with our MAP, our Math Achievement Action Plan. And differentiated instruction and universal design for learning approaches within all classrooms that are all clearly articulated through instructional frameworks. So we identified that early on, late last year and early on this year, that we needed those instructional frameworks to be created. They have been created, they've been released to the system, and we are well on our way to providing additional supports moving into next year to continue with those instructional frameworks. So on to future success.
So this sheet shows you 5 key indicators that the province looks at and we look at when we talk about students' future success and the graduation rate. So the first indicator is just that, how many students graduate within 5 years of starting grade 9. And although you can see an improvement in the board number from 81 to 85%, I know from having been in a superintendent previously, that is actually quite a gain in Blue Water to 85%. The next measure that we look at is the number of students who have 16 credits by 16. So by the end of grade 10, that's a goal. Our percentage is 70%, the province at 80, and that you'll see is a key area of focus for us. The third measure is the percentage of students enrolled in at least one grade 12 math or a grade 11 or 12 science course. And the reason why this is important is it's not enough that students earn a graduation diploma. What we really need is for them to have the courses that they need to apply for jobs, particularly in our area, very high technical jobs that will be looking for those courses. So that's also an area of focus for us. The fourth measure is the percentage of students participating in at least one job skills program. And you know this because we've had OYAC presentations many times over, and you've seen some presentations from the Student Success Department. We lead the province in this area at 45% versus the provincial average of 28%. We're really, really proud of that. And the final measure is the percentage of students who believe that their learning prepared them for the next step. And it's a bit disappointing to see that that's 54%. We all would like to see that higher. So the overall, what this is telling us on the page is that we trail a little bit in grade 9 and 10, getting all of the students that we would like to have 16 credits, but then we get them through the our work programs, the job skills programs in grade 11 and 12 back on track and improve our graduation rate. So from that, we're proud of those results and the improvement that we see, but of course there are next steps. You'll see on this slide that we have focused in on 3 key areas. The one Keith mentioned earlier is strengthening tier 1 instruction. What tier 1 instruction means is that's good, solid instruction for all students. And so we are really focusing on professional learning that we can use to support teachers with explicit instruction, structured practice, and frequent formative feedback. The second key indicator for our second area of focus for us is really keeping an eye on the number of students who just after even first semester or second semester in grade 9, how many are getting the credits that they should be, and after grade 10. So we've been supporting schools to intervene earlier, doing things like creative timetable supports, targeted programming, and proactive credit rescue and recovery strategies. And then of course, just because we're leading in the province, we're not going to back off. We are going to continue to expand job skills and pathway focused programming to ensure that students are ready when they graduate to take on the kinds of jobs that we offer in this area and beyond.
I know we got that, but there's in your part. In your part.
So the next section, as part of the SAP, is the engagement and well-being section. And in the engagement and well-being section, there are 3 areas or 3 indicators that are focused on by the ministry, and of course, then in turn by us here in Blue Water. So the first measurement that we look at is the suspension rates. And we look at the suspension rates for students in grade 4 and 12. And you can see in Blue Water, comparatively to the province, we have a slightly higher suspension rate. So this is something that we definitely want to pay attention to, and you'll hear me speak about in the next steps. We also have an indicator that looks at the percentage of students in grades 1 to 8. Their attendance rate is equal or greater than 90%. You will note that we are significantly below the province in this area.
One, which I think you've heard me speak about, throughout, over the course of this year and last, but one piece that we have to remember when we see this indicator is that inclement weather day attendance is taken into account in this indicator. So like we know Blue Water, and with the nature of where we live, we do have inclement weather days, and of course, over the past the school year, the last school year, this data would indicate was the most inclement weather days we've had in Blue Water on record. So that is of course impacting our data. So we have to keep that in mind when we're looking at this. We have to think about if we could take out the inclement weather day absences, what would our absence rate look like? Our third indicator in this area is around students reporting being aware of mental health supports and services. This question is asked through EQAO, so in grade 3, 6, and 9, this question is present on the questionnaire, the student questionnaire, and that's how this data is collected. So you can see that we're, on par right with the province slightly above in this area. So to target and focus in on these indicators and to keep our eye on using this data to inform our work, we are looking at strengthening our earlier identification and monitoring of attendance. So in the attendance world, we know that there's specific requirements and processes. For example, when a student reaches 15 days of consecutive absence, we need to have the attendance counselor involved. We don't want to wait till students are absent for 15 consecutive days before we are paying attention to this. So we want to have strategies and things in place to monitor and pay attention to attendance before it becomes to that level. And of course, I think you've heard me speak about, we're noticing that the pattern in attendance is sporadic even in our earlier grades. So this is not just a secondary school problem around attendance. We are having some concern in our younger grades, and we want to pay attention and monitor that. And we're going to do some of that work with our attendance counselors specifically, but it's all of our work. We can't just rely on the attendance counselor. They're there to help us with those cases. We need to also focus on that good for all tier 1 that Farrell mentioned. We also, when we think about well-being and engagement at school, we've heard us in our department talk a lot about the collaborative problem-solving model. And that's just one, again, preventative, proactive model around how we engage with students who are struggling with behavior at school. So how do we really connect with the student? How do we get to know them? And how do we help understand the why behind the behavior and then make really good plans to support that. So we're going to continue our work in this area. In terms of suspension data, again, we want to monitor this. We want to pay attention to the types of suspensions, the length of suspensions, and which students are receiving the suspensions. And a goal for next year is to form actually a suspension review committee in-house so that we have a multidisciplinary group, not just, someone like Colleen and I sitting in our offices looking at the data and talking to each other, but looking at other professionals and experts in our department to help look at the data, analyze the data, and make supporting plans. We are, of course, in this area, in mental health, always focused on tier 1, good for all, really good programming, but we know there's tier 2 work to do. How do we have focused interventions for students? So we're going to think about how to work tier 2 work into our planning for next year. And Keith and Cheryl both mentioned it comes down to targeted professional learning, coaching, and consultations that we do. So we want to continue that work. We want to refine that work and support our staff in that way.
Thank you. So as we finish the month of June, we are all working on our actions that we want to take moving forward into next year. We put that into the student achievement plan module with the ministry, and then they populate using all the attendance data and EQAO data and everything else over the next 5 to 6 months. And around Christmas time, we have our revised SAP for next year. That's the way that works.
Thank you. Do trustees have questions? Trustee Greg.
Yes. This is, thank you, this is hard to come to grips with, but it's encouraging that our trend over those 2 years has been largely positive in math and literacy. Although it should be noted that it's up for the province as a whole too. I guess I'd like to ask the blunt question. What's wrong with Blue Water? Is it our students? Is it our program? Why are we not achieving at or above the provincial level consistently? And how does that pertain to issues of attendance and suspension, attitudinal issues?
Okay, thank you for the question. I think we addressed something similar in October when we brought the EQA results to you, and you asked something along those lines about why were we behind the province. So I think I'll probably respond with something very similar. So in terms of we are, if you look across the whole province, we are certainly, yes, we're behind the provincial median or the provincial average, so to speak. However, we're not the last board within the province. There are certainly areas where we are doing better than many others. We also, I don't know if you can actually take the suspension data and mix all of that in with a response and make that an accurate response to why the achievement, we would be seeing some lower achievement. We'd like to focus on the improvements that we've been making, and we have seen those improvements, especially in grade 3. We saw a 12% increase over the last 3 years in grade 3 mathematics. And where we saw those increases, they started to happen when we had the dedicated coaching and supports provided by the ministry. And we saw what happened was our teachers and our administrators were very receptive to getting that coaching and improving their practices when that opportunity was provided to them. So we're starting to see some of that momentum happening, and people are realizing, when we put the efforts in, we're starting to see those results coming about. We want to see that happening in junior as well. We are very focused on, with our mathematics framework, we're very focused on consistency across the system, as well as ensuring our administrators have the language and have the knowledge for what they need to be seeing within the classrooms. So we have a continuum of learning within mathematics that we're able to speak to, both administrators and teachers. It's become very clear. There's a lot more clarity in what we're doing right now. And I anticipate that we are going to be seeing improved results again next year in terms of the work that's been happening. I was very promising in the last few weeks walking around into the different schools and talking with students about and teachers about EQAO, and they were feeling quite confident about the results that they feel that they're going to be seeing coming forward. So that's very promising. Grade 9 mathematics has been low across the province for a number of years. It continues to stagnate. Our focus is going to be on grade 9 math and in junior mathematics next year. And a big part of that focus will be around building a community of learners. And Amy and the team were talking about that before. Understanding the learners within the classroom, because that leads to motivation, that leads to high interest for the students, and that leads to better results.
Trustees
Thank you. I may have asked this question before, so I'm just going to apologize because I appreciate everyone referencing what we've seen before, and I may have asked this before, and I'm also assuming this is a required format of sorts. But I'm just wondering if we ever look at the same cohort going through grades 3 and then their scores in grade 6 and then grade 9, because to me, that would be of far more value than year-to-year data, because that's completely different students. So that, and also just related but slightly tangential, the focus on the grade 6, especially math scores, that's a time when statistically speaking, math scores tend to drop across the board for everyone. And then you see games starting again. A little bit in grade 9, that's a little quick. Normally it's a little later, but so I probably get in trouble for saying this, but it's probably not as big a worry as people might think. It's just statistically speaking. Once upon a time I was doing research, it showed they drop. So, but anyway, but yeah, just a question about longitudinal studies.
Thank you. Good point. Coming from a researcher, excellent question. So 20 some odd years ago when EQA started, we always have seen that drop, grade 3 math, grade 6 math, and then we had this rebound back in grade 9. Unfortunately, what we're seeing in the last few years is we're not getting as much of a rebound in grade 9. So that is starting to worry a number of us. And we are, we know that we can see improvements in junior math. We have paid a visit to a few boards. CEO Fanning has pointed us out to one board. He didn't like directing, now he really doesn't want to see it. So our CEO allowed Amy and I to visit the district board in Niagara, where they're seeing some tremendous results in their junior math over the last number of years and improvements of 15 to 20%. And we've taken some of those ideas and we've baked them into our plans this year and into next year for what we want to do. So we're hoping to see some of those results as well. And we've made a specific point in grade 9 in secondary, saying to the principals that we want specific people trained to teach MTH1W, and we want you to keep them there. So there's a consistent, high quality tier 1 teacher teaching in those classes year over year. So, and then your other question was around the longitudinal data. Great point. This year was our first year we were able to see our grade 3 results reflected in the grade 6 cohort and grade 6 and grade 9. Unfortunately, it was mostly the year after COVID. So I have a little trouble relying too much on that. We did see some gains and some losses in that one. I'm very interested, and we will bring those results back to you in October of that grade 3 to 6 and 6 to 9 cohort, because I think that will be a much more accurate reflection of the gains we've seen within Blue Water.
Wanted to turn to our director, our CEO, and ask for his reaction to some of these numbers. And particularly given the fact that you have experience as an educator in Thunder Bay and also in Ottawa, how do we compare and why are we lower than average?
Thanks, Trustee Craig. I'm actually glad you asked me that because I didn't want to speak to your comment. So I've spent almost a year trying to get to know Blue Water as well as I can on all levels. What I would say is, firstly, there's nothing wrong with Blue Water. I think I appreciate the question. I think it is a good question to ask. It's a question I asked coming into this. Why are students achieving less than provincial average? It's not because there's anything different about our students. What I believe, based on years' experience, is that whenever Blue Water turns its attention to, it does very, very well at it. Historically, we have turned our attention to, like, this seems in the world of student achievement, when you think about accommodations and reviews and getting schools the right size, it doesn't feel like that's a comparable, but doing that really, really well has put us in a position financially, for example, where if we provide a balanced budget, if we get some enrollment, we can look at increasing the number of coaches that we have. So we are a board that what the ministry provides us funding for, we generally, that's what we spend it on. And so the results that you're seeing, the growth that you're seeing in our math scores is a direct result of the ministry funding those scores. Now, Superintendent Fay referred to Niagara, which was a board that when we had a director who came in 15 years ago and said, we're gonna fix math here. And that was all they did. And that's why now they've got all sorts of boundary challenges. They've got schools, they've got all sorts of things that are a struggle. But I feel that in my time here, what Blue Water turns its attention to, it does very well. And so we are really turning our attention to achievement. And not to say that it wasn't a priority before, but it was a priority in terms of what the ministry prioritized. And we are in a position now because of good decisions where we can start to look at doing things a little differently, start to address some of the challenges. Geography is a reality too. We cannot train teachers in the same way that other boards can. We can't bring 30 grade 3 teachers in for a half day's training at $175 a day because of travel, because of food, because of mileage, because of all those things. That is a reality. Probably the toughest thing I faced is the challenge with professional development structures in Blue Water compared to my other two boards. Even Ottawa, as large as it was, you brought people into an area, you brought 75 teachers together for a half day, you didn't pay mileage, you just trained them and off they went. So there are some challenges, but I have complete confidence in the team. I think we are really turning our attention to where it needs, and I think you're going to see the results in coming years.
Thank you. I just have one question with the suspension. Have we compared our policies to other boards to see if ours is a bit more rigorous or
Yeah, great question. Thank you for that. Actually, we have. We've actually just done a really thorough review with AJ's support and his department's support. And much of what's laid out in the suspension procedure is actually legislated. There are pieces where there's, a little bit of wiggle room, but a lot of it in terms of the number of days or a range of days or the kinds of things that you can suspend for or need to suspend for are outlined in legislation, but we have done a thorough review. We've made some updates, and I do think our next step is actually some training and just conversations with our administrators to ensure that we do all have sort of a common understanding and a common approach to discipline.
And the other one that I just wondered about, is it possible in the fall to adjust the absenteeism, to remove our snow days and see how that looks, just for our purposes? I know it's not what the ministry is expecting, but just for our knowledge.
Yes, we can.
Are there any other questions or comments? I don't see any. Thanks so much. Next, we have our Indigenous Education 2025-2026 school year review, and I'd like to invite Superintendent.
Evening. I'm going to read the Indigenous Education School Year Review for 2025-2026. And our report outlines our continued progress and key areas of success, reflecting our deep commitment to truth and reconciliation. Our report highlights our ongoing engagement with Saugeen Ojibwe Nation community in co-developing staff learning and rich student programming. I'm pleased to introduce Kathy Archer, Learning Solutions Administrator, Rebecca Chigagno, Indigenous Advisor, and Chad Department, our system, our secondary system curriculum teacher to bridge that data reporting.
Sure. There's feedback somewhere.
Hey, her computer. Turn off your mic. Turn off your mic and speaker on your computer. Okay.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for allowing us to present to you this evening. It's a real pleasure to be part of this portfolio of their partner students for that. The first slide we're going to move to just kind of outlines. Get there. There we go. And for pillars of focus, we've divided into two separate pieces that I can see. The first is our teacher capacity building or, educator staff, kind of resources and, ability to kind of lay out for students what they're learning themselves. So that really, that personal professional development is very key to all of this. And the second part then is about program and student initiatives. So what we're doing for our students, those two pieces of that.
All right, so I'm gonna briefly start by talking about the capacity building components of this. So these are the things that have been done with educators to build their capacity so that they can approach topics of Indigenous education, content, or even the end courses such as the MBE one that I'm going to talk about, with the background knowledge that they need to do justice to those types of courses. So a big focus for me this year has been on the NBE course. This is Contemporary First Nation, Métis, and Inuit Voices in Literature. It is a grade 11 English course. So we've had a group of teachers out from all 9 of the secondary schools for 2 days of professional development. One was held here in winter, and then the other one was actually at the OEC. They've had guest speakers come in to help with building their knowledge. So they had Kevin Kuipers who spoke to them about local treaties. And then they also heard from Polly Keisha Tobias, who I'll talk about later. She is a local author from Nawash. We also did a lot of resource updating. That's one thing that was really important and pertinent to us, especially in light of the Thomas King news back in the winter, who was a very favored Indigenous author who was not actually Indigenous. So we did a lot of resource updating to address that and gave them some next steps forward. What do you do with a book that you are no longer going to teach in that course? Who do you put in to have a more authentic voice? And we did some other fun stuff like taking literacy out of the land. We had the opportunity at the OEC, and then kind of from their recommendations and things that we talked about together in terms of what novels that they were teaching successfully in their courses. I've been able to launch Sora, which is Sora by Overdrive is Libby, but for education, and it's an online digital library for youth in our schools. And it provides things both in ebook and audiobook format. So it's again touching on like accessibility, but for 2 specific courses, and one was the NBE and the other is the ML1W, the grade 90 streamed course. Another capacity building piece that I've had the pleasure of sharing with many groups this year was Song 101, where Song refers to Saugeen Ojibwe Nation. So it was an introductory 45-minute session, and so we did this with Sam, Nam, any of the NSIP teachers that came through this year. Got to go in and do it at some staff meetings. And really where this came from was that we have our land acknowledgement, but what does that really mean? What is the traditional territory that is the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, and who are the Chippewas and Nawash and Cedar First Nation and Saugeen First Nations? We hear it all the time with land acknowledgement, but do we really know what that means? And so we took the opportunity to make sure that teachers, whether they were new or not, and administrators had a better understanding of that. So we really dug into 2 treaties that impacted the area. Treaty 45.5, that was the original one that ceded about 1.5 million acres of the original 2 million. And then we looked at Treaty 72, that took most of the remainder of that finger of the peninsula highlighted in yellow there. So when people were done with the session, they had a much better understanding of the local treaties, histories, and also a bit of information about the fisheries, which are really important to the area. And there was also a part 2, but we only got to that with 1 group. So we're still building on it.
Okay, so actually, you know this phone. So, I think I'm good. I'm gonna say. Okay, so with this education, we've also brought into the 4 colors and 4 directions.
So with the northern direction, it represents the winter, eastern direction represents the spring, southern is our red. Then we also have the western direction. So this cycle is very, very important for Indigenous people because we believe that we come in on the east side and everything goes in a circle. So we always start in the east and we head to the west. We also have, our youth, we have our people cycle, I guess is what we would call it. We started as an infant, we go into our youth, we head up into adulthood. And it's only when, we're an elder that are we at the top of the life cycle. And that's very, very important to, help, work with our teachers and also work with our students as well. For our Indigenous forum, we had an Indigenous student forum on May 8th. The students, the numbers of students was overwhelming. We had 160 students registered. 120 students were able to attend in grades 7 to grade 12. It was an amazing day out of the land. We had the most beautiful weather. We had the most incredible students. It was absolutely incredible to see the students engaging with each other from different schools, the relationship that they were building. Superintendent Elliott did make that great observation. She did notice one of our students from the Student Senate. He's usually here, quiet, very respectful, different guy when you bring him on the land. I think he's surrounded very much his peers. And that was something, it's to gather these students together, to gather our Indigenous students together for a day on the land with the laughter, with the community members that they're able to speak out. These community members are also role models. They're taking up positions within our community and they're role models. These are people that I would like our students to strive to become. One of our most popular events at the Indigenous Student Forum was Cedar Tea with an elder. We had the honor of having Marsha Rainey and Robert Price come and they did Cedar Tea by the fire. The number of students that would run off and do quill harvesting, porcupine quill harvesting, and would come back to the fire was amazing because they had the connection to Robert. Just being able to be around him. I think that was something that really bonded these students. Some of the students don't live in the community, which makes it really, really difficult. When you don't live in a community, you're away from your culture, you're away from your language, you're away from your people that you feel really good around. And these students were able to get that. A lot of the students that did live in the community were the ones that kept going back and wanting to sit with Robert. And I just thought that was one of the most amazing things. When he said that, this is an amazing bunch of students you have, Rebecca. You have very, very grateful, respectful students. You should be very proud. And that was one of the things I thought, okay, it just made my world to hear our students. We also undertook a huge task. Last year we did the ribbon skirts and ribbon shirts program. And we had I would say about 35 people sign up. This year we had 50, I think we did about 53 ribbon skirts and we did about 11 ribbon shirts for the boys. So this was, the boys pick out the ribbons that they wanted to put on their shirts. We sat down with the boys, we taught them how to use a sewing machine. So his concept for the boys would get when they got that straight. They were so excited. But it was a new task. It was a new skill that they were learning. And I wish Noah was here to see this picture of him. Noah did an absolutely beautiful ribbon shirt. I'm so proud. It was amazing. This was an amazing time to have the students gather around with community members, to hear the belly laughs that you hear with these students, with these staff, with these community members was amazing. It was so worth it. I felt like the whole time that we were doing this ribbon skirt event, we were healing each other because we were laughing and we were getting to know each other. And for me, that was one of the most amazing things to be able to participate with the students, where the tears in the eyes when the students would tell us, I never will be able to get a chance to do this because I don't live in my community.
That was a huge thing for us, was being able to talk to the students and finding out how meaningful this opportunity was for some of them. It was absolutely incredible.
I'm going to speak briefly to learning success. This is something brought to you in a board report in the fall under our summer learning program. But we are going into our fourth summer of having learning success for Indigenous students in 2 locations. The first location this year will be in Old Sound at the high school, so Old Sound District Secondary School. And the other location is at the Aaron Memorial Youth Center on Saugeen First Station. So we anticipate, we already have a large number of students already pre-registered, about 18 in one location, 19 in the other. And it's just a great opportunity for students to obtain another credit. For those students reaching ahead, if they're in grade 8, they can reach ahead to get one of those first kind of high school credits out of the way. And for other students that are maintaining and staying on track are also really important. So another exciting summer ahead for that program. And if you've heard Rebecca talk about it in the fall, very passionate, she was out kayaking with them in the fall. There's so many beautiful things that take place as part of that program. And the other one we'd like to highlight as well is the land-based learning opportunity for students from Saugeen District Senior School. So every fall, they have an integrated program, Farnham High School's major program for Indigenous students from Saugeen First Nation that can attend Silver Lake as part of a 4-credit integrated program where they attend to the camp every day as part of a small group of students with an opportunity to learn in an alternative environment. And it has proven to be very successful. This year it was presented at PES. I think some of you might have already seen the presentation, and what a wonderful job attributed to the team that came and presented at that conference as well. They did a beautiful job, but a wonderful program and a really good example of how when you develop programs that meet the needs of students, you find success.
This one, Rebecca and I can both speak to, but a really exciting development this year was that we got access to the Chippewas of Nawash history textbook for grade 7 and 8, which is something that was developed in community about the Nawash community, kind of their history, and it was first for Kikidoskamig, so that their students could learn about their history locally, but we have now been gifted the opportunity to use this in some of our schools as well. So we invited in the 7A teachers from Alexandria, GC Houston, Peninsula Shores, and then also the 7A teacher from Kikidoskamig came in as well. So we had PD together on how to implement this textbook, how to go through it. They also got some contextual information on the local treaties as well, some information about the fisheries. And then we had a bit of time to plan together and how are you going to use this in your class, not just as an add-on, but something that, you know, maybe replaces a bit of what you're doing with something that is more local and relevant to the student population in front of us.
So this Nawash history textbook was the reason that it wasn't released to the general public was that a lot of the stories in there and a lot of the histories was meant to know for the Chippewas of Nawash and Cedar First Nation members. So that knowledge was strictly for them. And once the community had a feeling that a lot of the members had a grasp on what the history was, then it was free to be able to come out to our board. So we're very, very lucky to have this. We also have the geography textbook as well. Just beautiful resources, just absolutely amazing. I'm very, very happy that we were able to present this to students because I do really believe that for reconciliation is knowledge. And once you have that knowledge, then you have the truth, and that just leads to the reconciliation.
It also has been very well received by teachers that are using it, so that's great. Another resource that kind of goes along with the textbook is a little bit older. It's from the 90s, but it is amazing. So this is the illustrated history of the Chippewas of Nawash. It is written and illustrated by Polly Keisha Tobias, who's one of the folks who came to talk to the NBE group. And in the 90s, she made this amazing graphic novel. We've had one class set that we circulate, so we send it out in the courier. And this year, just kind of through the work that we've been doing and through word of mouth, people have been asking for this a lot within 7, 8, and secondary. So we've been sending this thing out a lot. It's been a lot of traveling. We've invested in more class sets so that more people have access to it. And it really focuses on the local histories, but in a way that is friendly to students because it's in a graphic novel. The language is a lot more accessible than those original treaty documents. And it also talks about other local history like the fisheries. If you are in Wyerton, I'd love to give this a shout out because it has Howell's fish in there and how Howell's played into the community's fisheries and like selling fish for them. So there's just a lot of really interesting bits that are relevant and relatable to students. So yeah, we're excited to have more of that to share with educators and their students.
This is part of our commitment to truth and reconciliation, and part of that is a rollout of what we call the Indigenous Education Curriculum or Continuum for kindergarten to grade 12. So what that looks like is that any school that a student is attending in Blue Water, whether they're in grade 2 or grade 6, grade 9, those students across Blue Water would have the same experience, whether it's through traveling to a visitor center, whether it's through a virtual visit to a museum, or whether it's something like you see here up on the screen, which is the water map. And we were fortunate, Jane, you and I, to be at the Aaron Root Memorial Youth Center when a number of our schools were there to participate in this interactive activity. And it is the size of half of this room, possibly on the floor, and the students put on the virtual lens and are able to walk around and experience the waterways and just demonstrating what they meant to Indigenous people, but what they mean to Indigenous people today as well. So a wonderful experience. We are in the process of acquiring a map that will travel into our schools. And for our purposes, it will go to grade 9 geography classes. We would train the teachers and then have the opportunity for those schools and those students to experience the water map. Another one that you'll be familiar with already is our grade 6 students all attend the Outdoor Education Center. And a part of that, when they are there, is to learn more about, similar to the Song 101 we're doing with staff, is a Song 101 for our students. So in speaking with the coordinator there, Deb Devo, they're already do some of this very well, but looking to the future that we might provide a module for the teachers to provide in the classroom before they attend to the Outdoor Ed Center, and when they get there, then to already have that embedded knowledge in the third grade. So that's part of what we're rolling out for next year.
Okay, so Your Voices Power is a project I had a lot of fun working on this year. It was for secondary students and teachers alike, so it's kind of capacity building for both. And the idea behind this project was that teachers were given the professional development to learn how to use a program called Ear Sketch so that they could take it back to their students and they could combine coding with Indigenous beats to create their own original music tracks. So we had, one day of professional development. Teachers played, we had a lot of fun doing that, and they felt pretty confident taking it back to their students. And then the students really ran with it. They're just so more technologically adept than we are, but they worked on it in class. Teachers found ways to integrate it into their curriculum, so they were not all from the same grade, same school, same subject area. We had an interesting variety. And once the students had time to create their tracks, we came back together for a celebration day here at the board office, and we had a guest speaker in. So the gentleman up at the top, that's Classic Roots, or Joshua Perry. He is a First Nation DJ from Thunder Bay, but he currently lives and works full-time as a DJ in Toronto. So that was really exciting for him to be able to share kind of his life journey and pathway to becoming a DJ with the students. And then we set them to a challenge to create in on-the-spot groups an original track, and he had given them some kind of guidance. And I was really pleased by the overwhelming want for students to share what they had created, because sometimes that's not their comfort zone to share those kind of artistic endeavors. But we had so many students that wanted to share what they had created that we didn't even have time for all of it. So I was pretty blown away by that, and they were good. So that was a very exciting project, and I just want to say thank you for supporting that.
So we've also participated in so many different smaller activities. One of the activities that we did was we did Breaking Fry Bread, which we took part with Roger Mookie at his farm down towards Berkeley. We also participated in the Aboriginal Post-Secondary Information Program, which is a program that delivers post-secondary information to different schools, and they have different booths set up. The kids love it because they go and get all kinds of swag. They get to meet Indigenous advisors from colleges and universities, and that just kind of sets them out on their first step towards post-secondary. We went to the Legacy of Hope, a national crime, the residential school system in Canada, which was a presentation that they had at the museum in the Bruce County Museum. It was very well attended. We had 3 schools come, and the students were very, very respectful. They were interested because this really affected them in the way that they could go and they could find their family's names. And that was one of the really big things that the students took away, was that they did find quite a few of their family's names, and that was it was quite eye-opening for some of them. We also had former NHL player Jason Simon come and visit GC Houston, PSD and SDS. And I would like to say that because Jason Simon came, Saugeen First Nation won the championship. And I think that was because we had Jason Simon come, and he just really pumped up our students and got our students very excited. Jason really enjoyed coming to GC Houston. He joined right in with the students in the drum group. He thought that was one of the most amazing things to have, students learning the drum. He joined a few of the songs. It was quite amazing. The other picture that we have here is from when we met with Cheryl George, and she told us about the impact of residential schools on her family specifically. It was very, very moving.
Thank you.
Thank you. I was just sitting here thinking, we've heard many snippets or a specific program and some information about it, but to hear everything presented at the same time, it's very impressive. All of the events, programming, learning, and support to our students that's gone on. I get to hear it in Indigenous Advisory Committee, but your enthusiasm and so on. So I do appreciate it. And trustees have questions or comments? Please. Sorry, that's me.
Okay, thank you, and thank you so much for the presentation and all the work you do, and you touched on this a little bit tangentially, talking about some specific English classes and also about the incredible book and resources from Maywash. And just an extension of that, I wonder if there's a plan to increase Indigenous created and centered resources in classrooms, library, schools in general, and just Indigenous authored books to be more available in our classrooms. Thank you.
I've been a part of it, and Tasha's been a part of too this year, a working group across a number of districts, talking about appropriate resources and Indigenous resources and written resources for our school. So it is something that we've embarked on, certainly, and putting that resource list together. And part of that too leads into the continuum, that piece about each grade having a touch on Indigenous education very intentionally is part of that.
Can I just say, if you need help with that, I have a list half put together that I never finished at one point, so.
I'll give you Tasha's number.
And I think when Rebecca and I were talking about what we wanted to do with the NBE group this year, because we knew resources was always a focus for getting together with English teachers. But we wanted to really rebrand as local too. So that's why we had Polly, Keisha, and Tobias come in. And then by extension, she talked about her mother, who is a poet, who's really foundational to actually getting the Indigenous canon of literature going in Canada at a time when there wasn't really one and a platform for Indigenous voices. So we have some really amazing people coming out of Maywash in terms of the world of literature. We talked a bit about Basil Johnson as well. Just some really amazing folks locally that we can be looking at and make sure that teachers were aware of that. And I think too now having the Maywash history text and the geography text, those you can't get more local than that or authentic than that, because it was created by the community with someone who was able to do like the technical writing of it. And so those like really are gifts and the most authentic and local I think that we can get. But yeah. Kind of like when we did read like a little mini resource out of like what are you teaching in NBE too, we made sure, you know, we want to center Canadian voices first and then can you go deeper with what is local? Like, are we talking Ontario or are we talking BC? Like how local can we get? So that was a big focus for us.
Well, one quick thing is I really appreciate the focus on local and Canadian. And just a bit of a reframe I've had to do myself is that the borders are white people borders. And the reason I bring that up is that there is a wonderful author who from Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, and Emily Kowaczyk from Saugeen has done a cover illustrations for the book, so there is local time, but it is just because it's a hop, skip, and a jump across the border doesn't necessarily reduce the authenticity of it. So I'm just sharing that.
So actually, with that book that you're speaking about, I read that book and I read that book when I was way up in North or way up in the Yukon, so far away from my community. The language that's in that book, the slang that you'll hear in Anishinaabe in that book, it grounds you. It makes you feel as though you haven't crossed any borders. It is your community. It doesn't matter, like that was what I read. When I read that, I thought that is not Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan. That is, it wasn't Midwest. That's what it is. Just the language, like there is a lot of local authors that we can use, but when you do have the right Indigenous author sending you those words, they can be really, really grounding and they're just as impactful as though it was somebody from your own community. Yeah, so there are a lot of really, really amazing resources out there. And there are a lot of resources that we do have to weed through because yes. So one of the other ones that we hear a lot about is reservation dogs. It's not Canadian. It is not Canadian. When you look at the politics between Canada and the US, very, very different communities. That was one that I'm just like, stop using it because there's no connection to our students. There's no connection to our Indigenous people here with that movie. It's such a stretch. It doesn't give our non-Indigenous students a good lens to look at what's going on. So yeah. But yes, there are so many resources out there. We will definitely take it upon understanding.
That's great.
This was very impressive, very encouraging. What I'd like to know is how are you extending this kind of program, this kind of curriculum down to every school, every student in Newwater? So it's not just within the Indigenous community, but goes way beyond that.
I can just bring back to the slide if you want, but just to go back to the discussion of the continuum, that is where we're embedding that information for students across the water. So kindergarten to grade 12, no matter which school you're a part of, that is part of the education of that. I think that answers your question. I hope so. Anyways, it is something that we're looking to build on. It's something that we see we've taken from another district as a really good model for ensuring that all students have that knowledge.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the presentation, as I say, and your enthusiasm and commitment and love for what you're doing shows through. Thank you so much. We next get our Bill 101 of the week, after a hard act of welcome the Chief Executive Officer Keene.
Thank you. Yeah, I just, Chair Thompson, just want to thank you for that comment. I would like to thank everybody for their patience tonight. We're certainly going relatively long with our reports, but no one's up here talking about how great their job is or how great they are at their job. I guess they are talking about how great their job is in terms of the impact it's having on kids and on teachers, changing the way that they teach. So they have been pretty inspiring, and I'm grateful for your patience. That being said, I'll try and be quick because I know there's some policies to bring forward. You have the report in front of you. This update is, as we know, the one-on-one information is coming from different sources and not all the officials. So I thought I would provide trustees and everyone else with a bit of an update as to where we are. You're aware that the one-on-one was introduced in April. It came into the oral sent on May 7th. The legislation essentially expands the minister's authority over key areas. The primary area that impacts trustees obviously is governance. Expenses, but there's also legislation around communication, what boards can communicate out officially, student assessment policies specific around attendance, counting for marks, as well as mandatory exams. And also quite a lot of power around capital decisions in terms of land purchases, new builds, being able to take over if things aren't going well in the ministry's opinion. Once it came to the set, some things came into effect immediately, others are waiting on regulations. As you know, the bill is passed, regulations are written. We have seen a couple of regulations come out already. The one around expenses, or estimates rather, the budget process. So we are following our traditional budget process, which fits really nicely in with the new regulations around budget process. I do want to say, and I was sort of speaking to this earlier, Trustee Thompson and I were having a conversation. In many ways, Blue Water, from a governance perspective, has been a model board. Trustees have not gotten involved in operations. They have not forced staff to make decisions that impact budget in a negative way. I've given some examples where some other boards have passed motions to hire a particular number of staff, or they've passed motions to run a program that isn't funded that costs $750,000 a year. Those sorts of decisions have tied the hands of school boards and has impacted on some of the decisions that the minister has made. We have not been one of those boards, and so the overall impact on how you govern is probably not going to be as noticed as many other boards that have different dynamics in terms of how their trustees operate. All directors have been required to transition into the role as CEO, which you've heard. I would say that it's an uncomfortable title for an educator, but it is the title that I now have. There were no situations where a director was not transitioned into the role of CEO. There are qualifications now required to be in my position and hold my position. Those are business qualifications. We have not seen what those look like. However, we have been told directly that most of us would hold the qualifications required because of the experiences we have had in terms of stewardship over large budgets, labor relations and negotiations, capital expansions, accommodations, etc. I probably wouldn't be qualified until I've done this for a couple of years, but fortunately I've been exempted into the role. CEOs will continue to be hired by trustees. They cannot be terminated by trustees. So if the trustees are not happy with the hire, they would have to get minister permission to fire the CEO. The CEO hires the chief education officer. The minister's vision is that the CEO is responsible for the operations of the board, finances, budget, accommodations, labor relations, etc. And the chief education officer is responsible for the academic side of things. I will say that there will be a number of boards where the CEO will also hold the title of chief education officer. It makes sense in our board that I would assume that it's what I was hired to do, and we have strong staff to support the other aspects of the board. We are not a board that has concerns around our fiscal management or our facilities. In other boards that are larger, the CEO will probably spend most of their time with policies and budget and staffing and all of that, and they would have someone else to run the academic side of things. What is currently most unknown is what will trustees be left with in terms of their governance powers and responsibilities. We do know that there are some things that have been removed. For example, the budget requires trustee approval, but trustees are not involved in the creation or development of the budget. In Blue Water, that's sort of how it's always gone. It's not been that case in other boards. Some boards have a budget committee that forms in December or January, and they start the process. Other areas, we don't know about policy, we don't know about strategic planning, we don't know about committee and meeting structures yet. We have not seen those regulations. We do believe there will be an impact on what our governance structure will look like, how many meetings a year we'll have, what will be the focus of those meetings, which committees will continue, e.g. policy committee, business and facilities standing committee. We don't know those pieces yet, and we're not rushing to provide a recommendation when we don't have those answers. As the new regulations come out, corporate services will review them. We will address where policy changes need to happen. Certainly by September, we'll need a revision of our bylaws, which will be part of the trustees' mandate. I want to conclude with the fact that the impact is less about addressing challenges, more about adapting strong existing practices. We will continue to monitor closely. I know that Bill 101 has had no good news for trustees. And certainly, in a meeting today, I expressed to the chair and vice chair that I'm still me and you're still you. And so that relationship to me will remain unchanged. We will be talking about some different things and we will be talking about some fewer things, unfortunately, but we will keep you posted and updated as best we can. I would anticipate that, come August, Crystal and I will have, looked over the new regulations and we'll have some recommendations and some conversations around changes to the bylaws, et cetera. So I'll stop there and answer any questions we have.
Trustees have any questions or comments? Trustee Johnston.
Thank you. I heard, in the commentary that staff, would get information and then, they would then, I guess, suggest to trustees, this is what we have to do. But I'm just wondering if there's a possibility of just not imposing on us, but if there's a way to have it be more conciliatory, more consultative, is there a way to work around some things that doesn't violate what the ministry? And I would really hope that happens as opposed to being told that this is how it's going to be. It just, it won't do, I think that we want to maintain a relationship with our CEO and our staff, and I'm concerned that the way the ministry is going about this, that it's going to create division that won't be helpful to public education or to our students and our staff.
Yeah, thank you for that, Trustee Gauss. I think it's a very fair comment, and I apologize if it did come across as though we would simply pass on information. We will be as consultative as we can and work collaboratively on areas that we can. I think the meeting structure is a perfect example of that. There are definitely going to be some areas where, we received a very clear memo around expenses and, that caused us to revise our expense policy. And those are fairly black and white issues, but where there is opportunity, we will absolutely take it. I also value the relationship between staff and particularly myself and the trustees, and we will work hard to maintain that.
I think the comment is the trustees is to not just put your board email away for the summer. There may be information that comes because the timing is not, has come unexpectedly. So periodically take a peek because Crystal and people will keep us informed of something.
I think just for final comment, I'll say the one maybe positive glimmer that I saw was in a meeting with the deputy minister. A question was asked about, I think it was around meeting structures and governance structures. Will that be coming? And the deputy minister was almost, she wasn't flippant, but she was like, tell us what you want. And so I think there are definitely some areas where they don't want to get more involved than they need to. We know this was a very political move. This is a consolation is to, you know, I didn't get rid of trustees, so I'm gonna take away all these powers. But I also think that they're not gonna be interested in regulating areas that they don't see as savings or they don't see as areas that are gonna get avoiding conflict between CEOs, for example, and trustees. So I think there will be lots of opportunity where we can still maintain the standards and the processes that we have in place. It did seem to me, her comment was that they're not gonna come in and, you know, mandate and regulate every single thing about governance.
And that's a good thing, because I know across the province that boards have very different governance structures and different kinds of committees. And I know that our board over, I would say, the last 10 years has really reduced the number of committees and things like that, but where other boards, they still had like just all sorts of committees and I, you know, there's a part where we worked really hard as a board to, you know, kind of what's the main thing and, you know, to do that. And I would really think it'd be very sad if we became across the province this kind of cookie, you know, this is that, and that's all there is, and not take into any consideration uniqueness of individual boards. So that's,
Yeah.
so when she says, well, what do you want? I mean, that would be a great opportunity for the province actually to then do that consultation. At least that would provide a kind of a, you know, a feather, so to speak.
You talked
Because I-
about consultation, but
No, like, I'm not talking about you have 2 days to
Yeah.
do a brief and here you go. I'm talking about exactly that. And I mean, when I heard that, I go, oh my goodness, you know, I mean, that's when you would put that out there. But thank you, and not during the summer.
yeah, sorry, it says a final comment, but you just sort of got one more thing. And I do want to say to sort of be a little bit reassuring, we had a meeting with public directors, CEOs, earlier this week. And there was talk of boards were moving ahead, they were having June meetings, they were doing all these things. And, you know, I'm fairly new, but I'm old, so I don't mind speaking up in groups. And so I did make the comment that, you know, not every board is gonna be the same. Even though the ministry wants consistency and centralization, that, you know, we are very different than what I'm hearing some of you describe. And so we're not gonna be moving ahead as quickly as some other boards. So, and then it was echoed by a couple other CEOs. So we will be able to retain our uniqueness. I'm hopeful that we can.
I think it's positive that we're starting from such a positive position, and with good relationships, a really solid place. So tough times ahead, but we need to keep those relationships at the forefront, and we navigate it as best we can.
Tonight's meeting has been illuminating 3 important presentations about 3 important aspects of our programs. And it's noteworthy that we have received this information, been able to comment on it. And your staff, superintendents and others, have been required, because this presentation was coming to us, to evaluate what you're doing and why. My point is that this is a great example of what the board is all about, which is learning about programs, evaluating them, and making complaints when required. And it's also noteworthy that this particular meeting and the topics that we've covered are not impacted by Bill 101. This still is the role of trustees to learn, comment, and push you every now and then.
I agree. I think the strategic plan, multi-year strategic plan, I hope that rest of the trustees is what motivates us. It's what moves us. It's what we are held accountable to. So, and that is the trustee documents.
Speaks to the importance of boards of education.
Thank you so much. It has been a really, I was surprised when I looked at the time because it had been such an meeting. We do have a few things that I think we can move through fairly quickly here, but first is our committee reports, and I'll turn it over to trustee Atkins to speak to the special advisory committee meeting.
Thank you, Chair Thompson. First Special Education Advisory Committee met on May the 25th. We had a special presentation from Stephen Reed, the president of the Learning Disabilities Association of Ontario. He gave a report on his on within the board. Abby Kingston, our student senator, she gave a report of the upcoming and ongoing events within the student body. Our committee members gave an overview of their work and their upcoming events. We reviewed our CEAC meeting dates for the next school year. And the committee, we received a letter from the Upper Grand District School Board to the Minister of Education on special education funding. And we talked about that earlier this evening. The committee approved the motion presented by myself to send a letter on behalf of the Blue Water District School Board, CEAC, to the Minister of Education on special education funding. And you will see below a letter that was approved. We did have a recommendation to add under community and mental health supports a line at the very end of the paragraph that states this is especially pronounced when considering the many crises and tragedy responses that our board has had to manage recently, and that refers to our two tragic events that happened in May and November. So it was approved to be sent off. This letter has been sent to the ministry. It was sent yesterday morning. Allison Lawrence, new assistant, sent it on behalf of CEAC. If there are any questions or comments,
Any questions or comments? I don't see any, but thank you so much for the work that you did with that.
Can I just say one thing? I just want to take a moment to thank Lauren and Chanel and Jamie and Andy for doing this, putting this all information all together. I received the letter, I believe it was on Wednesday from Upper Grand, and I was talking to Chair Thompson, and I knew we had to do something. And so she had a conversation with our CEO, and we got it done, and it was presented on Monday. So there was only a couple of days and it was all pulled together. So I'm very appreciative of that work done.
Thank you. Next is our policy standing committee from May 19th. I'd like to invite trustee Luce to speak to the report. There are 9 recommendations. Do you want to put them on the floor, or would you like me to do that?
You have a preference?
Doesn't matter.
Okay. How about I just talk real quick, then you can put them on the floor, and we'll try and be as efficient as we were with the time crunched meeting that we had. So policy standing committee met Tuesday, May 19th with quite a few policies to review, and there are 9 recommendations coming forward. Those are all the ones that were revised for system use. And we also have quite a few that are going to the system for review, and some very, well, all our policies are very important, so I don't want to say some are more important than others. But I would encourage everyone to, maybe do some summer homework and, like public and review policies. I'm getting some glares about the idea of summer homework, but on that note, again, just encouraging review on the policies that are there for review, and then we can go to the 9 that are for system use.
Yes, this committee's been doing a lot of work. So there are 9 recommendations coming forward, and I'll look for a mover for each one. That the Blue Water District School Board consider approving board policy BP 3301-D, naming of school and board facilities as revised for system use. Trustee Lutz. Any further discussion on this policy? I see none. All in favor? Carried. Next, that Blue Water District School Board consider approving board policy BP 4620-D investment scholarships, bursaries and award trust funds as revised for system use. Have a mover, trustee Roots. Again, is there any further discussion on this? I see none. All in favor? The Blue Water District School Board consider approving board policy BP 6501-D transportation as revised for system use. Can I have a mover? So we may just put trustee Lutz at the end of any commentary on this one? All in favor? The Blue Water District School Board consider approving board policy 3501-D purchasing as revised for system use. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried. That Blue Water District School Board consider approving board policy BP 1802-B Student Senate as revised for system use. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried. The Blue Water District School Board consider approving board policy BP 2105-D environmental sustainability as revised for system use. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried. The Blue Water District School Board consider approving board policy BP 2108-D outdoor education as revised for system use. All in favor? The Blue Water District School Board consider approving board policy BP 5902-B community education as revised for system use. All in favor? Carried. And finally, the Blue Water District School Board consider approving board policy BP 6950-B prior learning assessment and recognition FLAR as revised for system use. All in favor? Carried. And next, I'd like to invite Trustee Atkinson to speak to our Parent Involvement Committee from May 11th.
I'm very happy to bring this report. We met actually in person for the first time that I've been on PIC here at the Ed Center. So it was nice to actually see people. Our CEO, H.A. Keene, I'm having a hard time with that, I'm sorry, provided an update on the Georgian Bay Community Snow Day Pilot Project and the budget and No 101. And I do believe a very good conversation was had with Sarah, who has children that are attending Georgian Bay. So that was it was nice to hear her points of view. Unfortunately, I didn't get to stay and see this, but our communication officer, Jamie Pettit, I did a presentation on social media. That was just the backstory. This was the same night as our SEAC involvement night. So I can't be I've had a hard time being two places at once. But, and then Mary Lou Stangler, Superintendent LaFave's assistant, gave an upcoming reminder that Paul Davis from Cyber Safety event was being held June 1st at Spruce Ridge Community School in Durham. And I must say, I was there last evening and it was very, very, very informative. It was well received by the community. We had our neighbors from Upper Grand attend as well. They live in our neighboring community. There was approximately between 25 and 30 people. Parents brought their students, or their children, our students, their children. It was very impactful in their expressions and their look. Oh wow! You know that wow moment they have. It was a very good evening. I learned a lot. Other than I had to have my brain in my ears work together because he is a very fast talker. And so we had to play catch up. But what I found most interesting is, and thanks to Keith and his staff, Paul gave a presentation to our 6, 7, and 8s at Spruce Ridge. And because of Keith and his staff, we were able to bus our Normandy friends in Ayton, 6, 7, and 8. So they all got to partake in the presentation. And Paul said he had a very engaged bunch. One of the questions was, do you own your cell phone? And of course, all 80 more plus had their hands up. And he said, do you really own your cell phone? And they were a little bit inquisitive. And then, do you pay your cell phone bill? Well, the hands came up. And so he explained to them that mom and dad, grandma, grandpa, auntie or uncle or guardians were on the hook for what they put on their phones. So that really stirred up the gym. So it was very well received, is what I'm trying to say. It's so well received. I have a special little friend that I chat with on a almost daily basis, and he wanted to talk to me about the event yesterday, but I had another commitment that I was almost late for. So we have a talk time tomorrow to see his input. So it'll be interesting in the eyes of our special needs child to see what he took out of it. All in all, it was a wonderful night. Thank you to Keith and his staff for arranging it. It was, again, very well received, very informative, and I do believe the kids got a lot of it. So I did go out beyond my report, but then I won't have an announcement.
Oh,
Thank you.
thank you. Are there any questions? Okay. Are there any motion this evening? I see none. There was no new business out of it. Are there any announcements? I have one announcement. This evening, for the Board of Trustees will be the last meeting for Superintendent Elliott to join us. And he's not able to be at our final meeting. So I just wanted to thank you very much for all the good for Blue Water that you're coming to retire and coming to support us. So thank you so much. And if there's no further announcements, I would look for a mover that we adjourn at 9:02 p.m. Trustee Joseph, safe home, everyone, and thank you for yourself.